Using any kind of slide in a webinar really is webinar 101. I'm not going to spend much time on slides, but I am going to, in this session, talk about a couple of topics related to slides so that we're kind of all on the same page here. There's a concept called costly signaling. Costly signaling is where an organism expends some of its resources in a way that aren't related to keeping it alive, but rather attracting or impressing usually someone else in the same species or a species that's related. There's a saying, right? A flower is just a weed with an advertising budget. It only flowers to attract bees or whatever insect will cross-pollinate with, others in its, own species. So it spends money to make money is another way to think about it. Now, there is no $1 million version of PowerPoint that's going to make all your stuff look amazing. Okay, everyone has the same PowerPoint, everyone has the same Keynote or Google Slides or whatever software you're going to use for that. And there's no $1 million version of Zoom or GoToWebinar or Contrast or anything else that gets you 3D smell-o-vision kind of effect. Everyone has the same tools. The tools are understood. The tools are well known. Slides are slides. Where you separate yourself from everyone else, especially in a webinar, is understanding that in the webinar world of slides, costly signaling translates, for the most part, to photographs, to a lesser extent, colors or designs and diagrams, maybe infographics. So there are lots of sources where you can get really gorgeous photographs that are thematically related to whatever it is you're talking about in your presentation. You go to Pixabay, you go to Pexels. It's absolutely worthwhile for your marketing department, and they probably already have this, to have a subscription to, iStock or any of Getty or any of these other subscription-based services that contain 20, 50, 200 million photographs, indexed by subject and whatever else. If all you're going to do is put bullet points on a slide, there is a place for that. I'll talk about that in a second. Well, there is a place for that. But for the most part, you should be using way more photographs and stock photography than you think. Not cheesy stock photography, but really colorful, vibrant stock photography. It's so easy to get these days for little or nothing, most likely nothing, that you should have photographs on almost every slide. In fact, the slides you don't have photographs on, they don't have photographs on them to set them apart from the rest of the slides because the rest of the slides do. There's only really one exception to this rule. If for any reason you are talking to an audience that might be put off by any kind of effort put into the design aesthetic of your slides, then don't have a good design aesthetic. Make it look like your slides were done in 1997 and haven't needed to be updated since. Okay. If you want to put something on it, use the cheesy clip art, whatever. But I really don't recommend that. Everyone is used to really high production quality, production value type stuff now, even from sources as mundane as TikTok and YouTube, right? Cameras look great. People look great. People are wearing like interesting colored clothes. The graphics are great on YouTube videos and stuff, and those are all free. So unless you think an audience is going to be put off, like a very highly scientific audience, and you're talking about a very, very specific kind of issue, you're going to have a lot of like tables with small type, because you have to, just to prove, your bona fides and that they should be listening to you. CFOs maybe might not want a lot of gorgeous stuff. They actually just want to see screenshots of Excel sheets and stuff. Very specific audiences, you might want to have the plainest looking thing ever. But for everyone else you're competing with while they're watching your stuff, you're still competing at that moment with all kinds of well-produced, visually interesting stuff. So use way more photographs than you're using right now. Also, and this is a very small point, for some portion of your audience, consistency matters a lot. And by that, I mean every slide should be using the same font. Every slide should have if you're going to have an NDA or your logo or something on it, it should be in exactly the same place on every slide as much as you can without it looking weird because you've got something else on the slide. Consistency matters to a portion of every audience. And there's no reason to have multiple fonts and type of aesthetic stuff on between slides. I know that if you're the technical speaker in this case, I know that you're probably pulling a slide from this deck and you're pulling 2 slides from that deck. And sales gave you one, marketing gave you one or two, and they're all using different fonts. They all have different things in different places. The logo or the company name or the website is in the lower right on one of them and the lower left on the other. You need to clean that up, right? The rule of thumb along this stuff is learn the rule, live the rule, and then once you've lived it, you can break the rule once in a while because you know what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing and you're deliberate, once in a while, I'll move an element on one slide to some other place, but that's done for a reason. It's done because I want someone to notice the discrepancy. It's not sloppiness. If you're just allowing stuff to be whatever on your slides out of sloppiness, some portion of the audience is kind of like you. And like you look at that and you say, all right, well, they're not as detail oriented as I might want in a vendor. They don't have control of their material. They're kind of half-assed about the whole thing. That's an impression you're giving off, whether it's conscious or unconscious on your part, or conscious and unconscious on their part as they receive it. But consistency matters with fonts. It's so easy to just change everything to the same font and move your little NDA disclaimer and copyright notice and tiny logo and company name, whatever, to the same spot on every slide and just have it. It takes a second per slide. Do that. Don't be sloppy in how you present. In fact, being sloppy is sort of the opposite of costly signaling, which we just talked about. It's like, I don't give a crap. If you don't give a crap, they're going to know that you don't give a crap. Some of them are going to stop giving as much of a crap. So be consistent in your slides.